Insurance could be a beneficial risk management tool for producers. For farmers and ranchers with livestock, the Pasture, Rangeland, Forage Insurance Rainfall Index could offer assistance under situations with lower than average precipitation. Nebraska Extension's Jay Parsons joined us recently to explain coverage options and the goal of the program.
Well, basically it's a precipitation risk insurance that protects producers that have perennial pasture for livestock production from that precipitation risk. So if they don't get enough rainfall, this is an opportunity to insure against that.
So when we talked about doing this, I said we talked about the possibility of rain in 2018, and you said you would prefer producers don't think of it like that, but rather as a strategic decision. Tell me why.
Because basically you got to make your decision on which months you're going to insure and how many dollar values you're going to put on everything by November 15th to sign up for the next calendar year. So right there you're already looking out quite a ways in terms of any kind of weather forecast. And the other thing is most producers that I've talked to, all producers that I've talked to that are happy with the product and using the product have developed a long-term strategy that they've stuck with over time instead of trying to guess when it's going to rain or not going to rain, putting it on or not putting it on.
Tell me about the details of the program.
Well, November 15th is a sign-up, as I mentioned. You can put different dollar values on that. You have some flexibility there. Your dollar per acre is basically determined by county, and then you have flexibility around that. You can go 60% of that value or up to 150% of that value. And then, so that'll give you a dollar value per acre that you're actually attaching to it, and then you can insure up to 90% of the expected rainfall. So the rainfall data is provided by NOAA, and it goes back to 1948. And what they do is they basically average that out, and average is the expectation, and you're insuring a percentage of that.
But it's not on your operation, the rainfall.
There's no rain gauge on your operation or anything like that. It's NOAA weather stations that are providing the data for each grid. And the grids are, depending on where you're at, in Nebraska we basically say 12 miles by 12 miles, but technically speaking it's 0.25 degrees longitude by 0.25 degrees latitude.
When we talk about the cost, how much is subsidized?
This is subsidized just like regular crop insurance, so anywhere from 51% up to 59%. If you're insuring at the highest level at 90% coverage, that's subsidized at 51%, and then as you insure less rainfall, it's subsidized more heavily.
So how well used is this in Nebraska, do you think?
Well, we're basically running about $10 million worth of coverage in the state is what we've had the last couple of years, $10, $11 million kind of stuff. So it sounds significant, but you know, it's really only maybe a tenth of what could be covered.
Do you think more should be covered, or producers could use this as a bigger part of their risk management strategy?
I think it's a good way to protect against, obviously, against the precipitation risk of having dry weather and not having the pasture that you prefer. Like I said, if you stick with it as a long-term strategy, just like people have grown used to with, say, corn production or soybean production, where crop insurance is just part of your expected expenses, I think it could be a good supplement to the income that they would have on a year-to-year basis, depending upon rainfall.
Will most producers insure those most important months of grazing? Is that what their game plan is?
You know, people take different strategies on it. Usually people do want to insure the months that the rainfall is most important to them. Determining when it is most important, though, can be a bit of a crapshoot, right? Because you can have a nice wet spring and say everything's cool, and then the last half of the summer dries off and you still have to pull the cows off early. But because you can spread it out and essentially cover all the months you want, if you strategize that way, I usually tell people if you aren't sure, spread it out, and then you're more likely to get a payment, and at least some payment out of some of the months to help you through those tough times.
Well, when would those payments occur versus something like a major disaster program?
Well, that's kind of the neat thing about it is because it's determined every 2 months. So these intervals you are insuring are 2-month intervals. So the first one you could insure, of course, would be January, February. And let's say you did, and precipitation ended up being 40% of normal, and you had a payment coming your way. Those payments are basically, the indexes are usually announced within a month, and payments are usually taking place within 2 months, kind of thing. Now, the way the product works is like crop insurance in that you don't have to pay the premium up front. So your premium is paid first before you actually see a check, and then if September rolls around and you haven't paid up your premium, then you actually owe money for your premium.
And finally, Jay, how might an online tool help producers better determine what coverage level might be right for them?
Well, that's the cool thing, is that RMA has developed a very sophisticated, I should say, but it's easy enough to use, online tool where producers can go in and they can actually find their property the grid that it's in, and so on and so forth, and the different costs to the coverage. Put in some sample coverage, see how it's performed over the years. And again, the data goes all the way back to 1948, so they can play with it till their heart's content and see how it would have performed over the years. And one of the neat things that I've done with producers is when they're unsure, what to do in terms of the coverage, and I always say it's a financial tool for you. So fill that out, go back over the years and see with the years you needed money and if this would have paid and help you get through the year a little better. And the producers that have done that have been quite happy with how it's worked for them.